Guys who married bridezillas, what happened after the wedding? Story 1. My cousin was married to one. He comes from a very not wealthy area, and has become successful himself after moving out of his hometown. His wife was extremely wealthy, could even say excessively. They married after a year of knowing each other, and boy was it a surprise to hear about the wedding plans. They spent north of $250,000 on the wedding, including catering by 5 to 7 different restaurants. Their food was from different cultures and cooked in front of you, think almost hibachi buffet style. They even had servers in tailed suits and white gloves serving Taco Bell after midnight, once everyone was drunk. Once they got married, she was spending more money than he could make. She was getting mad because he wasn't making enough, while she wasn't working and they hadn't had kids. They got divorced, and she gave him the ultimatum of getting his ring back or keeping the dog. He kept the dog. Her sister, a lawyer, helped her file a restraining order on him and they haven't spoken since. Fudge her, but man did he dodge a bullet. Edit, I forgot to say they finished the divorce papers exactly 1 year and 1 day after their wedding. Story 2. According to my mother-in-law, I'm the bridezilla. We had a max limit of 36 people including ourselves and my son. My mother-in-law gave me a guest list which included, you guessed it, 36 names. She assured me that not everyone would come, but that they would be very appreciative of the invite, meaning they would send money as a wedding gift. I felt gross by that and left the decision up to my husband, since it was his family. Needless to say, they all got invites. I had asked for RSVPs to be given a few months before the wedding. Since the mother-in-law had used up all of the guest list, I had greatly reduced my side of the guest list to 4 people, with some on hold until I knew the exact numbers. I finally lost it 2 weeks before the wedding, when I still didn't have RSVPs. She said she would work on it and get back to me. A week before the wedding, she said one family needs to bring 9 other people, because they were going on a family trip and our town was on the way, so they would all be here. I flat out said no, and called her out on the BS. I cut off the guest list, said that I was inviting the rest of my guest list and that whoever hadn't RSVP'd didn't get a chair or plate. Right up to the day of the wedding, they were making changes. We got married at a Chinese buffet so that it would be the simplest planning and everyone would have something that they liked to eat. My dress was $40 from Amazon. My flowers were $20 from Costco. We had a Dairy Queen ice cream cake for the wedding cake. Yet she still makes it out that I was the bridezilla. Story 3. Divorce after 2 years, she moved her stuff out while I was at work. I cried and then when I got remarried to someone new, I realized what real love was. Also, my ex shat herself on 5 separate occasions when she was blackout drunk because she was an alcoholic. So, I don't miss that either. Story 4. Love is a powerful drug. I was under its influence all along. I saw all the warning signs, but we looked past them because of love. My ex was physically abusive. I never raised a hand at her. But she attacked me physically several times. After I finally got away, it got back to me that she was telling mutual friends that I was abusive. When I asked her why she was telling people this, she replied, "You were showing signs that eventually you'd become abusive." This is after she abused me in every way a psychopath abuses. I was supportive and patient of her dramatically abusive stunts. Story 5. I married a bridezilla. He is a lovely sweet thoughtful man, but boy did he lose it surrounding the wedding. I could have been married with about 3 special people there. He needed 200 plus. As far as I was concerned, we could eat off paper plates and napkins and have a big bonfire to burn them afterwards. He need personalized moist towelettes. You get the point. He is a lovely person and I love him dearly, but I will never marry him again. Story 6. My brother's fiancé went off on my mom in front of me and my sister when he was 45 minutes late to the rehearsal due to his best man's car tire blowing out. She yelled, "Where's your asshole of a son? Dude should have never showed up for the wedding." Not only a bridezilla, but a total utter sociopath. Her life was completely fabricated and her parents, who didn't show up for the wedding, called my mom to tell her the truth about it the day after. She had a rap sheet a mile long and a prison record. But my brother, who just wanted to believe that people can change, stuck it out for 7 years. Don't do that, don't ever do that. Story 7. My sister was labeled a bridezilla by the staff at her venue, I heard them. However, the chair coverings that were red was the wrong color, they were supposed to be brown. There was no mirror in the bridal suite for her to get ready at. the photographer was late. The makeup artist was very late, hence the issue with the mirror. The buffet was totally wrong, not a single dish she chose. And they charged $25 a person for what was to be a 4-tier chocolate fountain, but ended up being a small plastic contraption that she saw them unbox from Walgreens the day of. On top of it, all the wait staff was half the number the contract stated. And the DJ refused to honor the playlist selected. So, yeah, she lost it at the venue. I'm a pretty chill person, but I'd probably be having a meltdown with all of those issues too. The issues themselves probably wouldn't bother me as much as the sheer lack of care and respect shown by the venue. I don't mind people making honest mistakes. I usually just shrug things off when they don't go my way, but I get pretty angry when I feel taken advantage of. Story 8. I was a bridezilla. It was a small wedding, like 50 people, was going to be at a park, very casual. Everything was handmade or from the dollar store. I only ended up with a dress from a David's because my first little boho dress I ordered was more of a shirt, so my mom and friends took me dress shopping. My mom told the lady not to tell me any prices, but I told her under $200. I tried on one dress and cried because I loved it so much. My mom bought it, and I later looked it up and saw it was $3,000. So that changed everything. No more wedding at a park. So, we booked a small venue. We served pizza and pies still, and the groomsmen were still wearing polos and shorts. Bridesmaids were still in some Rue 21 dresses I bought for them. I only became a bridezilla the day of. None of my family I had invited showed up, so my husband's side was full and mine was empty. Even our friend sat on his side. Our MC read the speech I wrote before we were even at the altar. Our camera died, so we didn't get the recording. I tripped going up to the altar. I had herniated a disc a week before the wedding, so I was miserable and in so much pain. I cried so hard afterwards. It felt like it was terrible. Like everything was ruined. I did my best to hold it together, but I was so relieved when it was over. If I could do it all over, I would change everything. Especially how I acted. None of that excuses my snippy behavior or my crying. Just because I was stressed and upset and hurting, doesn't give me the right to make others feel bad. Story 9. My sister was a bridezilla. She announced a 2-year engagement and asked me to be maid of honor. Then I got the opportunity to move across the country to pursue my career. It was 18 months before her wedding, and her reaction to the news was, "You're going to leave me here to plan my wedding all by myself?" Like I had signed away my right to have a life for the honor of being in her wedding. She made us all spend hundreds of dollars on specialized dresses. The bachelorette party had a dress code and a steep price tag. For the 10 years before her engagement, I had consistently had blue, green, or purple hair, but knowing she is conservative, I let my natural color grow out. I had natural color, but a short bob with undercut that she went on about. In the lead up to the wedding, we talked every few days to discuss her wedding. It was the closest we'd ever been, and then as soon as she was married, I got radio silence. She even forgot my birthday. Needless to say, we don't speak anymore, so I have no idea how her marriage is going. Story 10. Married a groomzilla. We are talking costume changes between wedding and reception, yelling at the wedding planner, drag out all-night fights about whether we can add fruit kebabs so people would maybe get enough to eat, all that. There was zero compromise. He made a lot of promises for things I had been wanting after the wedding, and they never materialized, like a beach vacation and such. Turns out, no compromise at the wedding meant no compromise anywhere else, so I left him after 4 years of marriage. Best decision ever. Story 11. Our friend married a bridezilla. He and my husband met when they were kids, so think about almost 20 years of friendship. The bridezilla is evangelical, and religion is pretty much her life. Our friend is agnostic, and a nice metalhead geek guy. They asked us to be one of the best man and woman. When we arrived at the wedding, we were his only friends. Everyone in that big wedding was from her side. Well, the preacher kept saying to him he had his old life and now his new life, his old friends and now the new friends. Yada yada. But the entire time criticizing his old ways, his authentic self, and everyone kept looking at me and my hubby like we were beasts. My husband and I are both tattooed and felt judged for it. It was the worst day ever. She is that kind of person that wants to be an influencer. Every damn thing is on her Instagram. Their relationship seems perfect on social media, but he always seems so unhappy, so apathetic, especially when we used to see him before the pandemic. Always talking about how they are so different, how things are like she wants. Her stories are basically her saying he does nothing right. It's even humiliating. She made him stop talking to us this last week. He got out of every group we had and stopped answering my husband's calls. My husband is very sad, he lost his friend. I believe she is the one replying the few weird messages he gets. That's the bridezilla. It's usually the bridezilla to act like everything is perfect on social media, but in real life it's all messy. Story 12. When I got married, I saw why women become bridezillas. Lots of unsolicited advice, criticism, requests, and stupid comments. When we sent out our invites, I included a line that said, "Do you have a request you think we should make? Click on this link to start." It was a link to PayPal for a donation. If you're going to give us your unsolicited advice, you should join in on the funding. People got the message. Story 13. My girlfriend of 10 years is very down-to-earth and level-headed. We finally decided to get married later this year for a few reasons, and she's feeling a lot of phantom pressure to do things a certain way. It's not like there is an overbearing mom or catty friends applying pressure or expectations. It's just the whole idea is overwhelming and filled to the brim with opportunities to make a decision you might end up regretting later, or forever. I've taken a more active role in narrowing down options, instead of asking her to pick a perfect solution out of 5 million possible options. It's helped somewhat, but there is still a lot of pressure on her seemingly out of nowhere, to make a series of decisions that all depend upon the first few big decisions that are weighing heavily on her/us. All this to say, I can see how this kind of stuff could turn a normal woman into a lunatic. These types of events tend to bring latent family and friend drama to the forefront, and emotions are high before shit even really gets started. My guess is that a lot of the bridezillas were actually lovely people who calmed down and returned to being lovely people after the stress of the wedding stuff is removed. Story 14. Married a bridezilla. In the 18 months we were married, she was such an unfit mother, too many instances to list here. She was such a bad mother that when the divorce was finalized, I got custody of our kid and the kid she had prior to our marriage. Also, she was a blackout drunk and cheated on me with several different men. Final straw was when I had to travel out of state to check on my grandmother. I came back a day early, saw used Marlboros in the ashtray, not her brand, and I don't smoke. Then I heard grunting and groaning in the bedroom. Yep, there she was, and there he was, and there he was. Yup, devil's triangle. Contacted a divorce lawyer the next day, finalized it as fast as possible. Story 15. My coworker married a crazy bridezilla. I'll try to just hit the bullet points of what happened leading up to, during, and after the wedding, but it's still a lot. 1. The moment he proposed she lost her sex drive. According to him, she also basically stopped acting like the woman he fell in love with and started acting like her real self. Which was batshit crazy. 2. A week after he proposed she quit her job because her full-time job was now planning the wedding. The wedding was horrible, I'm getting there. 3. She had a fight with his mother because the bride demanded the groom's mom pay for half the wedding, but get zero input and wasn't allowed to contribute to the guest list, which was 95% the bride's friends and family. 4. Bride, who was 30 years old, subsequently egged her future mother-in-law's house. 5. When bride and groom had a spat about the egging. She shaved her head and sent him video of her screaming and sobbing as she buzzed her hair off in the bathroom. I worked with him, he showed me the video when he said he had to leave, and I strongly urged him to have her assessed by a psychiatrist. He made a dumb joke about sex with a crazy girl is the best kind, and I pitted him. 6. Wedding was in a pool clubhouse in summer. It was much too small for the 150+ people they invited. Someone forgot to turn the air conditioning on until after the place was packed. A lifeguard showed up in a swimsuit to turn it on, but it did little given it was already sweltering. 7. 2 rows of chairs in the clubhouse were ribboned off with reserved signs on them, so no one sat in them. They were later occupied by the 6-seated bridesmaids, leaving about a dozen chairs open once the wedding started. The one groomsman stood by the groom and didn't sit. Elderly people were left standing or reduced to sitting on the floor as there was no way to get to the chairs once the ceremony started. 8. Bride showed up 90 minutes late, having been unhappy with her hair/wig and makeup, so she took it all off and did it herself. All the guests were standing for the almost 2 hours waiting for her. The groom was literally standing at the altar, sweating his ass off in a wool suit. He was clearly not sure if she would show up. He looked like he felt sick. 9. When bride showed up, she burst into the clubhouse, marched down the aisle and snapped at the officiant to hurry up and get started. 10. During the prayer, while the religious groom had his head bowed, she turned to wave at everyone. I don't pray, so I was looking up. Then she told her mother to go get her some water. She drank a bottle of water during the prayer and kept grinning and waving at people in attendance, paying zero mind to her groom in front of her. 11. When the ceremony was over, tables were crammed into the clubhouse and apparently only family and immediate friends of the bride had seats at tables. The rest of us were going to be standing outside during the reception. So, I didn't see a dance, a speech, the cake cut, nothing. 12. The food was served outside, in the southern U.S. July heat, with bugs everywhere. The bride made the groom go get her food over and over. He meekly stood in line with the other 150 people, until people insisted he go sit and let them get food. Nope, she told him to get the food, so he said he had to be the one to get her food. 13. She never left her table, never greeted any of her guests. 14. Apparently, they had a massive fight as they were leaving the following day for the honeymoon. The bride laying all the failures of the wedding she planned at him and his mom's feet. She threw his luggage out of the car and tried to drive to the airport by herself, but he had their tickets and jumped on the hood to stop her from driving off in his car. 15. He got fired about a month after the wedding because he kept showing up late, leaving early, and leaving in the middle of day. Usually because she called him with some crisis. 16. 1 year after the wedding I got a thank you note for my wedding gift, which was signed by just the bride with a note that said, "As you may have heard, Ryan and I have had bumpy start in our first year as a married couple, and we're separated now. Thanks for the lovely gift." They divorced a couple months later. Story 16. I have performed a few ceremonies that came about because things fell through for whatever reason. Only one of which I had to walk away from. I had received a call from my sister-in-law that one of her friends was supposed to get married and the priest had passed away the week before. They didn't want to change the date or move anything, so they had asked if she knew anyone who could help out. I said sure. When is the wedding? It was supposed to be in an hour. Okay, I was on my way home from work where I had finished up an important meeting and was reasonably well dressed, so I called home to say I was going to be late. When I arrived, the happy couple had looked at me and asked if I had proper priest's vestments. No, I don't, and if I did, I would probably not be carrying them in my car. The bride had asked if I was able to go buy some and come back. I told her that I wouldn't begin to know where to buy something like that. The groom then told me that if I can't even try, then maybe I should leave. So, I left. My sister-in-law told me they cornered a priest at the church and told him he had to marry them or they would sue the church for a breach of contract, and that it was the moral thing to do. They divorced 9 months later when her surprise baby was a different ethnicity than he was. Didn't help that he had a side piece as well. Story 17. First marriage was to a bridezilla. She got drunk before the ceremony, wouldn't dance because she was too anxious people would make fun of her, tried bragging to my cousins during the dinner that our wedding was better than theirs. All 4 of us got married in a 2-year span. She invited her ex-boyfriend to the ceremony. Later, I found out she had been sleeping with him before and after our wedding. Took the money we had received as gifts. We were planning on using the money for a down payment on a new house. She spent the money on random crap and ended up having a ton of debt she kept from me. Left her a year after the wedding and never looked back. Now happily married to a great woman. Obviously, hindsight, but there were a lot of red flags I should have noticed. Big red flags after the wedding, spent money more quickly than she could make it. I ended up having to take on a second job. I was already working 50+ hours a week, just to cover bills. She got into drugs and stopped going to work. She would go visit her friends in the evenings, found out later on she was going to her boyfriend's place. Final straw was when I found out what she was doing with the money. I didn't know at first she was into drugs. Online payments of bills weren't as popular when we were married, so I would give her the money to go pay some bills during banking hours. One day she got pulled over and charged with no insurance on my vehicle. Turns out she was taking the money for bills and buying drugs. When the notices for no payment would come in the mail, she would hide them or rip them up. Handed her separation papers on our 1-year anniversary. Story 18. I didn't marry the bridezilla, but I had coordinated her wedding. We had a death in the family, a 6-month-old baby, a few days prior to the wedding. I called the bride and told her the situation, and said that my assistant would be stepping in for me so that I could attend the funeral. She told me to send my assistant to the funeral and that I had better be at her wedding. I told her I would be sending her a refund and that no one would be coming to her wedding. The groom ended up leaving her after this whole thing went down. Suffice to say he really dodged a bullet there.